Today we're going to do a little bit of a special video. We're going to take it back to the good old days of YouTube with just two random dudes sitting around talking. But we've got one real important question for you today. First, I want to introduce my guest. This is Adam Bowman, owner, president, CEO, whatever you want to call it, of Good Life Grass Farms. Adam specializes, at least as far as I'm concerned, in grass-fed, grass-finished beef. You also do sheep now?
Sheep as well, so 100% grass-finished beef and lamb. We also do some pork for folks that buy large quantities of beef from us, but yeah, mainly the grass-finished beef, grass-finished lamb.
We're gonna mostly cover the beef today, but before we get started, we have one real important question, and that is, who's your farmer? And I hope by the end of this video you will highly consider that Adam can be your farmer. So first off, I want to start with a topic that Adam really helped me better understand, which was understanding the price that you're going to pay for your beef. You guys get to looking online and you talk to different farmers, and one guy wants to sell you a live weight, one guy wants to sell you hanging weight, another guy wants to sell you finished weight, some other guy just wants to sell you something you're not really sure what it is, and these prices are all over the place. And so I want to have Adam explain to you guys how that actually breaks down, as far as what you're going to get in the end. What's the real price that you're going to pay?
So when we talk about price and meat from a farmer, it's typically three different ways it'll be priced. The live weight, which is the live animal on the hoof, alive, walking around, how much it weighs. They could charge you the price per pound for that. The second way would be the hanging weight, which is once we take that animal to the processor and we skin it, we take out the guts, we take the hide, the head off, the carcass will be hanging there on the rail, so that's called the hanging weight. And then the final way that's priced is per pound of packaged weight. So that's your packaged weight that you would buy at the market, put in your freezer. Hamburger will be 1 pound packages typically. Steaks will be 2 steaks per pound, but that's the per pound price. So when Tom and I were talking about this in the early spring, he had called and he said that he had a price per live weight, and I think your price was like $225 or something.
I think it was $225,
like
yeah. $225.
And then I said, well, my price hanging weight is $325. And the first, our first conversation, Tom was kind of like, well, that's more expensive than what I'm looking at here. Then we, dug into it, and his live weight was $225. My hanging weight was $325. Well, on my prices, if you compared that down to live weight, it would actually be $180, because my $325 price is without the guts, without the hide, without the head. So that is actually only 60% of the total weight of a live animal. You take that live animal and process it, gut, skin, head removed. Your hanging weight is only 60% of that weight, so you lose 40%. So if you buy a live weight, you're more or less buying the guts and the skin.
Yeah,
and the
you're
head,
paying for a bunch of stuff you're not going to get,
which is going to be thrown away.
It's going to get thrown away. And I guess why would someone want to sell it by the live weight? Why would a farmer sell it by the live weight versus the hanging weight?
Yeah, well, there's two reasons why. Sometimes you can get around like having to pay, or some farmer you get around having to pay taxes because the person is buying a live animal from you. And if you get into the nitty gritty, you could avoid a little bit of tax, but I mean taxes are so small. Like on the half of beef that Tom bought from me, his taxes were like $38, and he paid about $800 or $1,000, something like that. But so that's the first reason why you kind of get around a few loopholes like that. And then the second reason is, I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's.
I mean, if you have a cow that's a certain frame size, I'm just trying to think.
The farmer might just make more money,
Yeah, is there an advantage?
Because you're saying, because like that, you can price it lower. It's a lower price per pound, so a customer might see it and say, oh man, that's a good deal. Like, that's $2.25 a pound. But when you really dig into it, that $2.25 a pound was a lot more expensive than my $3.25 a pound hanging weight.
By the time you got to the package weight, yeah.
By the time you got it home and looked at per package weight. So we have a live weight animal. We slaughter that animal. You lose about 40% of the weight, and then if you take that hanging weight and you go ahead and process it, you know, cut it up, you're going to throw out the bones, you're going to throw out some of the excess fat or tendon on that animal. Then you're going to lose, you know, about another 40%, 35 to 40%. So like on our prices on a half, $3.25 a pound for the hanging weight. That compares back to $1.80 a pound live weight. If someone wanted to buy one from me at a live weight price, that's what it would equal. And then per pound of packaged meat, it's about $6.10 a pound for the grass-fed beef, packaged weight in your cooler that you would take home. Which, you know, comparatively, you know, grass-fed steaks in Springfield, Missouri, or Houston, Texas, or Kansas City, Missouri, you know, they're going for $15 a pound. T-bones, ribeyes, your fillets can be up to $25. You know.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned Southwest Missouri. Good Life Grass Farms is located in God's country. Just so you guys know. Don't get me wrong, I'm down here in Texas. I'm a transplant to Texas, and God bless Texas. But God bless Missouri too. I'm a Missouri.
All right, so we got a T-bone here. Again, it's a 900-pound steer, so it's not a giant T-bone, but it's pretty good size. But you can see we got really good marbling. This is the KC strip side of the T-bone. We got marbling throughout that whole sucker. This is the fillet side. You know, a good chunk of marbling here. You got the marbling streaks going through. So that's a finished grass-fed beef. That's a finished steak. It's got marbling in there. You know, just a 100% grass-fed steak that wasn't finished would not have near the marbling in here. And I've had them like that before.
So if it's grass-fed but not grass-finished, it doesn't have the marbling. Is the fat any different? Does it have like a rind of fat on the outside, or
you know,
or is it just the lack of marbling?
You know, we got a pretty good chunk of fat here. Yeah, it wouldn't have near the fat out there. Now, you know, granted, the words, you got to be careful because this is a 100% grass-fed steak, but it's also a grass-finished.
Grass-finished.
It has been finished. It was fattened properly at the end of its life to give you the marbling and the really good flavor.
But we haven't talked about the difference between just grass-fed beef and grass-finished beef.
Right.
So yeah, again, you'll see out there all over the place grass-fed beef, but you have to be careful. And if you really want good tasting, you know, good marbled grass-fed beef, you want to have grass-finished beef. And to properly finish an animal on grass, and when I say finish, that's having intermuscular fat in the steaks, that's having, you know, some outer fat on your brisket, all these things that give more flavor to the beef, you know, make it taste good. But we also have to remember that fat is where a lot of the health benefits of grass-fed beef come in. Grass-fed beef or grass-finished beef is not going to really be able to compete with the feedlot amount of fat that's on an animal. In a feedlot, they're always going to have more fat, but you know, we don't necessarily want all that fat. We just want some fat. But we have to realize that the CLAs, the omega-3s, beta carotene, all that is really in the fat, or a big part of it is in the fat. So grass-fed, grass-finished. Grass-fed just means that animal's out there living on grass. It doesn't mean that it's well marbled. Grass-finished means that it has been grazed with the goal, and the end product is finished. It has that flavoring, that fat in it.
Well, there's a certain definition, right? It's so many days, so many pounds per day weight gain.
Well,
or a target, I guess. Maybe not a definition, but a target.
I guess what we would say is, to be able to have grass-finished beef, you have to have that animal gain 1.7 pounds per day for the last, you know, 60 to 80 days of its life. That's really not, say, a definition that it has to be that way, but we know through science, there's been studies been done that to get that finished product, you have to manage your grass and manage your animals in a way that
that's putting away that good fat
that they grain.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's that weight gain.
Yeah. That's
so if you just have a cow out there just roaming around on pasture, and I'll tell you guys, that's the way I grew up. You know, my father raising cattle, and we had zero rotational practices, zero, you know, real effort put into cattle. It was just, there's cattle out there on that pasture, and come fall time, we're going to butcher one or two of them, you know, or we're going to sell them. And it really, when I think back on my childhood and I compare that to what I know now, it really is amazing. So, you know, we weren't raising anything of any decent quality, really, you know. I almost didn't like steak growing up.
That's what my wife says too.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, so having that 1.7 pounds per day puts on the fat. But another thing to consider is, you know, when an animal is gaining that much weight, they're super healthy, right? So their whole endocrine system, everything about them, they're not stressed. They're gonna have a shiny hair coat. They're gonna be tip-top shape. So, and I don't know about you, but with me, I want my food to be tip-top shape, healthy, not struggling when it's butchered. And that goes into the taste too. So, you know, stress level of an animal, we're always super careful when we're handling the animals to put them on trailers. I always do it really early in the morning so they're not heat stressed at all. And that goes into the flavor of the beef too. You know, if you have a guy that doesn't really pay attention to that type of stuff, you can have a pretty good product, and at the very end you can mess it up with high stress animal handling.
Right up to the end. You got to be diligent right up to the end.
So
yeah, you mentioned the healthy component, and I mean, because you don't have to medicate, right?
No.
Maybe in an extreme odd instance, but because of how you treat the animals, because of the rotational grazing, because of the proper grass-fed, grass-finished, the animals are just naturally healthy. There's no reason
that's right. Yeah,
to dope them up.
We don't worm. We give them one vaccination, which is like a tetanus blackleg vaccination, but it's super common practice. We don't. I'm trying to remember the last time we had a sick animal. You know, the one that I treated. I think 3 years ago, I had this little heifer that got a hurt foot. She probably stepped on something and swelled up. We had to give her some antibiotics just to make sure that she made it through. But of course, we sold her through the livestock auction and didn't finish her out.
Yeah.
But I mean, just, you know, kind of rare, weird things like that.
Yeah, and I think that discipline is what's important, really.
That's right.
You know, you had every opportunity to keep that heifer and breed her back, and you know, and do all that. But you know, you had to kind of break your rules, so to speak, to give her the antibiotics. It's not something you really wanted to do, but it happened.
Humane practices. We're not going to just let an animal
not going to let her
die,
suffer, right?
Or suffer for a long time. So
it's really easy to go down that slippery slope of medicating and just, you know, in my mind, cheating. You know, not to get off topic, but you guys that follow my channel or follow my other channels, you know I do the beekeeping, and I take the same practice with the bees. You know, there's all sorts of antibiotics and fungicides, miticides, pesticides, all the sort of stuff that I could buy and use to support the hives, but I just don't. You know, my approach is simply, if the bees can't do it on their own, then I don't need them. You know, and it's hard to say that. Some people think that's inhumane, but what we're doing is we are trying to breed better livestock, healthier animals, stronger animals, higher quality animals.
Animals that fit our environment and don't depend on medicines and chemicals and whatnot. Yeah, so like, you know, we cull if we have an animal that's kind of struggling in the herd, a cow that's, you know, not slicking off, if she's not staying fat, then genetically wise, you know, she's not cut out.
And then, like we talked earlier, say if this didn't have the good marbling, if you just thaw that steak out and you let it set, you know, sometimes even 12 hours, you're going to get an off flavor, because that meat is going to start breaking down, and you're going to get lactic acid build up, and it's going to have an off flavor. So this one here, it's going to have good flavoring from the fat, but it's going to prevent the meat from building up lactic acid.
Were you raising Red Angus?
Red Angus. We get our genetics from a seed stock producer that, you know, for decades has focused on that smaller frame, big gutted, efficient animal. So they've been doing this work for, you know, 40 years. We started getting our genetics from them, you know, 5 years ago or so, and turning our herd around really quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks to Faro Cattle Company. Shout out to Faro.
Shout out to Faro Cattle Company. There you go. Well, I think with that, we'll wrap it up. I think we've got some breakfast waiting on us in the house. But I appreciate your time, Adam.
Appreciate you, man.
You know, I can sit here and I can try to regurgitate this to you guys all the time, like I like to do. But sometimes it's really just better to hear it straight from the source. In the interest of full disclosure, he mentioned his wife, that is my sister. So there is a little bit of relation going on here. But you know, again, I mentioned, you know, growing up, I had no concept, no clue of farming. I grew up on a conventional farm, and knowing what I know now, looking back on it now, it almost is frustrating. But you know, that's just the way it is. That's the way it was. All we can do is try harder, try better. So, with that information, I appreciate you sharing, understanding the pricing, and understanding the real value. So now you guys know now. Hopefully, you guys can make that better decision. And we'll you know, ask you one more time, who's your farmer? And I hope you would highly consider Adam with Good Life Grass Farms. Thanks, Adam.
You betcha. Thank you, sir.